Hey there, my stamping friend Susan here with Pumpkin Hill Stampers. I have a Stampin' Show and Tell project to share with you today. This one features the Berry Harvest background stamp set, and I'm going to be doing a couple of fun techniques with you. I'm going to be heat embossing on vellum, and then we're going to be using our blends, which are alcohol markers, and alcohol in our spritzer to create the background colors on the back side of that vellum, and then we're going to put this card together. So stick with me. This one's going to be a little bit longer than my normal quick and easy show and tells, but hopefully you'll learn something new with these techniques, and then you can do some fun things on your own. Okay? So to get started, we are going to start by stamping the background image onto a piece of vellum. So I've cut my vellum a little bit larger than my stamp, and I'm using my placement tool, my Stamparatus. They are retired now, but many of you have them, or you have other placement tools. So I am using this for my background stamp. So I'm putting my vellum down, and I'm just going to put my magnets on the outside edge. Now this is part of why I cut it larger than my stamp, because I want to be able to put those magnets down. Okay. The second reason is I'm going to take the one image and cut it into two parts so that I can make two projects out of the one stamped and embellished piece. Okay, so we're heat embossing, so I'm going to ink this up with my Versamark, and I'm going to try really hard to get the whole image. I've done a few of these in my setup, and I've missed some of the image, so I just really want to make sure I get it all inked up so we have a nice solid print. Okay, so there's that, and then I'm just going to close this over, and we're going to press it down. Now, one of the nice things about the placement tool is normally if you missed a spot with ink, you could just stamp it down again. But because I'm stamping clear ink on vellum paper, it's not the easiest to see that I've missed part of the image. So it might take a little practice, but that's okay. The other thing you could do is I stamp with Versamark, but if you wanted to, you could stamp with a colored ink, and then you could emboss with a clear emboss powder. So the clear ink or the colored ink would be the color of your embossed image, but I'm deciding I'm going to use gold emboss. So I'm just going to take a quick peek. It looks like we have a good imprint. So I'm just going to take this off and be really careful, just hold the edges so that I don't smear that ink. Then I'm going to bring in my little tray here, and I'm going to put down some more gold emboss over the top. And that's going to adhere to our Versamark ink. Now, that might seem like a lot, but it's a big image, and I want to be able to move it around. So I'm just going to kind of shake it back and forth on my vellum and let the excess fall back into the tray. Okay, and then I can see, give it a little tap, I can see that I've missed some of it down here, so I'm just going to go back in and scoop it up and then shake it again. Tap it off, and now I can see whether I've gotten it or if I missed a little. Now it looks like I missed a little in here. Now it might be that I just didn't get enough powder on there, or it could be that I didn't get enough ink on there. So we're just going to dust it one more time, and it looks like maybe I didn't get enough ink on there, but that's okay. I'm not going to worry about it. We're going to use it just the way it is. Okay, so from here, I'm going to brush off this extra powder. Yes, heat embossing is a little messy, so be ready for that. From here, I would use my heat tool to heat set my ink. Now, I've done some of these ahead of time so that you don't have to listen to my heat tool do this whole thing. But it goes from being a dusted image, okay, to a glossy image by heat setting that embossing powder over the top. See how that shimmers? And sometimes that's best. If you hold it up to the light and kind of go back and forth, you can see if you've missed any when you're heat embossing. So I'm going to spare us that time. Now this one's going to be just fine while I let it sit. Once it's been dusted, I can let it sit for quite a while before I heat emboss it. It'll be just fine. So I'm just going to set this one aside. Okay, so the next part of our project is the alcohol ink part. What did I do? Okay, so I had a tray here. Here it is. Actually, it's a lid. This is a lid from one of my craft boxes, but I don't want to get my table all wet with the ink. So here's my embossed image. Here are my markers. I'm using Granny Apple Green, Shaded Spruce, and the two Blackberry Bliss. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to color on the back side. Now I'll color it on my grid sheet first, and then I'll show you why I use the lid. Okay, so I'm going to start with Granny Apple Green because it's a bright light color, and I'm actually going to go in and I'm just going to shade in between the berries and the leaves of the image. So this is like my background color, right? It's just going to go in between. Now you can see I'm not being super careful, right? This technique of coloring with blends and using alcohol, rubbing alcohol, 91% rubbing alcohol, is to kind of make it, I want to say a watercolor, but it's really like an alcohol color because it's all alcohol ink. And you're going to see I'm going to put ink right on the outside edge. I'm going to make sure I get all the way around and come back in here. So I'm just dipping in between the image. Okay, I'm dipping in between the images, putting in that background color, just kind of moving it all around, right? It's okay that it's not perfect. I'm not looking for perfect. I'm just looking at applying ink to the back of my embossed image. Now, you could color the front of this embossed image. That's fine. Why am I doing it on the back? Well, one, if it gets wet after you've colored it with alcohol ink, or if you get alcohol ink or alcohol on it again, it's going to reactivate the color and it might pool or drip or create a problem for you. So that's one reason I'm putting it on the back. The second reason I'm putting it on the back is when you emboss something and then you use alcohol markers over the top of that embossed image, you can actually color that embossed image. And I really want my gold to be clean and crisp, so I don't want to put the ink on top of my gold emboss. If you wanted to emboss in white and then color over the emboss, that's a different technique, and it's fun too. Okay, so there's my bright Granny Apple Green. Now I'm going to come in with my Shaded Spruce, and you're going to notice my marker's kind of muffed up, but that's okay, it's had a lot of use. But for this technique, I don't need a super fine tip, right? I just need to put the color down. So again, I'm just putting the color where I want it to end up, or at least close. It's not actually going to end up where I'm putting it, and you'll see why in a minute. But I'm putting it on the back of these images. Now, if you are somebody who really likes things precise, and there's nothing wrong with that, sometimes I like that too, you could certainly take your time and color each of these images specifically the way you want it to. Okay, that's a nice controlled way of creating your project. This one's a little less controlled, as you can see from my very fast coloring of the image. Okay, I'm really just laying color down. Think of it like blobs of color. So, I know blobs isn't really a very technical artsy term, but it's really what I'm doing. I'm just kind of putting in blobs of color. So, let this kind of be a freestyle for you. Don't stress over getting it specifically where it needs to end up. Okay, so there's that. Now, I do see I missed a little bit right in here, so I'm going to go back in and just kind of add a little more green, the lighter green in between. Okay, now I'm going to go with my light Blackberry Bliss, and I'm just going to kind of pick every other berry. I'm not really specific on what's what. Just kind of putting some light on, and then I'm going to go in and put some dark on. All right, I'm just kind of filling in the rest of the image with color. And it's okay if your colors overlap a little bit. It's not going to be detrimental to this project. All right, one more. This one's the dark. Now, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you're probably saying, wow, she's never this kind of wishy-washy with where she's putting color, but this technique is kind of fun this way, so bear with me, you'll enjoy it. Alright, so you can put color wherever you want. You can overlap it, whatever you want to do. Now, here we go. So if I just flip this over, just like that, you can see, right, everything's colored. It's kind of nice. You can leave it just like that. That's fine. It's no big deal. You do it your way, right? But I'm going to go from here. So now I'm going to stick it on my lid. And this is because I'm going to spray it with 91% rubbing alcohol. And I put mine into a mister. Some people do it with a watercolor brush. Whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do. But I have mine in a mister. And I'm going to mist it. Now, I'm going to do it a couple of times. First time, I'm going to mist it lightly, and you're just going to see that the color kind of gets vibrant, and if you put enough on it, the water will kind of pool or give you that crackly look because it's raising up a little bit. And if you just let it set, it'll dry that way. So if I just do a light mist, you can see it kind of gets, it pools up a little bit, right? But I haven't done anything to make it move. So it's just sitting on the surface of the vellum, and if I let it dry, right, when I flip it over, everything's going to kind of look like it's a crackled, colored effect. Now, I don't really want that effect for this project, but that's a cool effect. So you could leave it just like that, let it dry, or heat set it right there, and it would give you kind of a crackly effect. I'm going to put more rubbing alcohol on it. So I'm going to spray it again, and I'm going to spray it a lot. Now when I say a lot, so much so that I want the ink to kind of run together, okay? And I'm going to pick it up and tip it a little bit so the water kind of, or not the water, the rubbing alcohol and the ink is going to kind of shift on my vellum, okay? So I'm spraying it a lot, and you can kind of see when it's getting to be, well, what we might consider too much. Now I'm just going to pick it up and carefully, not too quickly, but I'm just going to tip it, and you can see the purple kind of runs down, and then I'm going to tip it back the other way. Right, and the color just kind of shifts on that vellum surface. Oh, I know how this is hard to see in the video, but hopefully you're seeing the color shift a little bit. Okay, so can you see how there's pools of purple and pools of green, and everything kind of is running off the edges? Now you could go further. You could use a straw, or you could just get down real close and you could just blow the ink across the vellum. Or you can just do it like I do, just tip it until it runs. Now I'm going to use my heat tool this time to set this so we can continue, but it also might move the ink around a little bit, so just bear with me for a second. Usually when my vellum starts to curl up, I know it's dry. That's okay, it won't matter. So now here it is. I've dried it with my heat tool. I can flip it over, put it down. I can kind of look at it, and do you see how my colors, right, they've all kind of run. So it's kind of now like a watercolor wash, but it's with the alcohol ink instead of watercolor ink, which is kind of fun. Now if you decided, and I'm going to do this, you could flip it over and add more color. Specifically, I'm going to do the berries, specifically to the berries. Okay, so I really want my berries to pop a little bit, so I'm going to add a little more of the darker color onto here, because some of it ran, right? So I really want to put some color back in those images, specifically where they belong. And when you touch this with your marker, yes, it's going to reactivate that ink one more time. You could even spray it again with alcohol if you wanted to and make it move around again. You can kind of keep repeating this as much as you want. So it's really kind of fun to make it your own project until you're happy with it. Okay, I'm not going to spray it again. I'm not going to dry it again. I'm just going to let it dry just like that. So that's why I use my plastic lid, because I'm spraying with alcohol and I don't really want to get it everywhere on my project. You can see even with that I got a little bit there. That's okay. This is kind of what I was going for. So that's kind of fun, isn't it? That's our alcohol with our blend technique on top of embossed vellum. Okay, so now we're just kind of going to put the card together. So the rest of this is just maybe some basic stuff. Alright, so first I'm going to back my vellum piece on just a piece of basic white. And this is just so that the colors are going to stay vibrant. If I were to back this on my dark color, see how dark it gets? But if I back it on white, it kind of makes everything glow. And I really like that image of glowing by backing it in white. So I usually tell you a little dab will do it, right? You don't have to go overboard with adhesive. This time, go overboard with the adhesive. Okay, we really want to cover the whole panel with a thin layer of adhesive. Okay, then I'm just going to set that there. I'm going to pick this up and I'm just going to kind of drag it down until it meets And then I'm just going to position that white behind the vellum. And it's liquid adhesive, so it should adjust a little bit for you if need be. Just tap it down so you get good adhesion, and you can just flip it over and rub it on the back. So I'm getting a really good sandwich, right? My ink is now sandwiched between my vellum on the front and my white on the back. Okay? Alright, so then I took this to my paper trimmer, and I trimmed it down to be 5.5 by 4.25, which is a basic standard card front, and then I took that and I cut it into 2 panels. Okay? So I got 2 panels out of this one piece that I worked on. So that's kind of fun. I can make multiple cards with the one effort. Now if you wanted a larger panel, just use it larger. It's your card. Do it your way. So I'm going to set this one aside, and we're going to use one of these going forward. Okay, so now I've got my card base, which is Shaded Spruce. I've got my fun panel that I just made. I've got also a piece of gold foil. Now the gold foil, you could use it plain. That's fine, you could use it plain. But I decided I wanted texture, so I've run mine through the exposed brick embossing folder. So I'm adding an embossed gold foil panel to my card. Okay? And then I'm using Charming Sentiments, and I've got Faith Over Fear as my chosen one. Okay, and I have 2 die cuts. I use the Something Fancy dies, and I've got a Shaded Spruce and a Blackberry Bliss one. Okay, that's going to help me make my sentiment tag. And I've already got one that I just stamped and embossed with that gold embossing powder again to make my little tag. Now, you could leave it at that. Okay? Lots of steps here you could eliminate or change, whatever you want to do. But I'm going to stamp it one more time. So I'm going to bring back in my background stamp, and I'm going to stamp the front of my card. Now this time my card is smaller than my stamp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-ink my stamp. And I can't really use my magnets this time because it would get in the way of the stamp. So I have to kind of either put my card on here and then close it, or put my card on here and kind of guess that I'm going to be below it, which is fine. And then I just press that down. And this is just going to give me a watermark on my Shaded Spruce card front. So we're going to have a background stamp behind the background stamp, which I thought was kind of fun because I wanted a nice full card. Okay, so the card front's been stamped. I've got my pieces, and now I just have to put it together. Alright, so I'm putting liquid adhesive on the back of my foil, and I'm setting that here, just bringing it in on both sides, so a little framing in that back. Then I've got my bottom. I'm putting this down here, and again I'm just framing it at the bottom, overlapping those 2 panels. Just give that a press to firm it up. Then I'm going to put a couple dimensionals on the back of my sentiment tag. And I'm just going to put a little bit of adhesive in here. Then I'll flip this over. I'm going to put this on the back, just like that. Hold that for a second so that kind of adheres. And then this is going to go down on my card. And there we have it. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's show and tell. I did. I had a lot of fun. I decided I really wanted to do a video for you. So it's fun to use our foil sheets and do some embossing to give it some extra sheen and pop. It's fun to do background stamping, both on the card and then making elements out of it, right? I can use a smaller section of my background stamp as my focal element. I really like this alcohol technique. I've been using it quite often the last couple of weeks on different projects I've been doing. So I hope you'll give that a try, and you can do any colors and as messy or as controlled as you want. So it's your card, make it your way. And then that's just kind of it. Just kind of fun, shiny Hopefully it's a really wow card. So like you know, you can visit my blog, find out more information or all the project items I used. You can certainly subscribe to my newsletter where I include all the projects I've done in the last week or so, and I have a couple bonus tutorials in there too, so you might want to grab my newsletter. The links are below. And leave me comments here. I'd love to know what you guys are doing. Remember to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on anything new, and feel free to share my channel with those crafty friends of yours. So the more the merrier. Alright everybody, have a great day, do some fun stamping, and let me know if you're going to try this technique. See you again soon. Bye-bye.